Okay, aloha kako. Welcome to the 7th installment of the KL Center for Sustainable Island Food Systems Brown Bag Speaker Series event. My name is Ioane, and on behalf of the center, I want to mahalo all of our guests and presenters for taking the time to attend today. Please scan the QR code in the bottom left corner of the current slide to see previous events we've hosted through one of our partners' web pages, Transforming Hawaii's Food System Together. And stay tuned for the recording of this event, which will be posted and sent out to all registered guests within a few days. I'll also be posting links in the chat so you can access that page along with our panelists' relevant content during the presentations. This speaker series is just one of the projects we're working on here at the KL Center, which is an initiative within the UH system co-directed by both Dr. Albie Miles and Dr. Noah Lincoln. One of our main objectives is to collaborate with folks at UH and across the food systems landscape in Hawaii to highlight the work being done by different organizations to improve our local food system. This includes addressing topics such as food security, justice and equity within the food system, ecological sustainability, and food system policy. We find that oftentimes this work is being conducted within silos, so we're here trying to make connections by building and maintaining these important relationships and also sharing the work being done by these organizations with people who it's significantly affecting. Overall, we really want to better identify what the university can do to support and improve food systems transformation in Hawaii. And in addition to hosting events like this, the KL Center has been established to engage in a number of activities to include research, data collection, education, community engagement, policy analysis, and other monitoring activities. The intention is to create and maintain the social, intellectual, economic, and political spaces that we feel are necessary to drive systemic change in a forward direction for the food system in Hawaii to better measure and realize food sustainability goals. Many of these materials will be available soon as we finish building out our website, so please be on the lookout in your email inboxes as we grow and continue to share resources and materials. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our panelists. Today, we're welcoming the Hawaii Climate Smart Partnership to talk story and share perspectives on their place-based and equity perspective. Lala Nuss will be moderating the discussion with Kyle Jackson from the ʻUlu Co-op, Irene Sprecher from Forest Solutions, Kaliko High, and Miguel Castrence from Oʻahu Research and Development Council, and Angel Melone from the Hawaii Cattlemen's Association, and Kenji Liu from Hawaii Farmers Union United. Just a few housekeeping items. All the audience interaction is limited to the Q&A feature within the Zoom platform, and any questions not addressed within the allotted time can be answered via email from our panelist guests following the event's conclusion. Lala will take the lead to introduce their team and provide us with an overview of the partnership to include research, visioning, state and county goal alignment, organizational roles within the partnership, and the challenges and barriers they're faced with. Go ahead, Lala.
Mahalo, Ioane. Aloha mai kako, everyone. My name is Lala Nuss. I am the Equity and Indigenous Innovation Specialist with the Hawaii Climate Smart Partnership. I'll be your informal moderator as well today. So today's session, as Ioane mentioned, will focus on the Hawaii Climate Smart Partnership through the lens of nonprofit agricultural partnerships and place-based practitioners that are part of this ecosystem of a project. So the flow is we'll give an initial overview. We'll have a slide deck. I'll kind of ground us in the overview of the project, and then I'll pass it on to my colleagues to talk about specific perspectives from project partners. And then we'll move into some facilitated discussion with some prompt questions for folks to respond to. And then if there's time, we'll maybe have a little bit of Q&A at the very end. So as Ioane mentioned, my co-conspirators and colleagues in the project for today is Angel Melone with Hawaii Cattlemen's Council, representing the ranching sector, Irene Sprecher with Forest Solutions, representing the forestry sector, Kaliko High and Miguel Castrence from Oʻahu RC&D, representing the farming sector, as well as Kenji Liu with HFUU, and then Kyle Jackson from ʻUlu Co-op. So we'll jump into it. I'm going to go ahead and share screen. All right. Everyone see that okay? Okay, great. So who you? Who are we? The Hawaii Climate Smart Commodities Partnership, or Hawaii Climate Smart Partnership. We have a few different names that we've been using. We are one of 141 USDA grant-funded pilot projects happening across the US for a time period of 5 years, starting in 2023. Our partnership is supporting producers and practitioners across all 4 counties in adopting regenerative agricultural practices through a combination of hands-on technical assistance, research, education, and infrastructure investment. Our project aims at distributing over $14 million to directly support the adoption of climate smart practices and infrastructure within the ranching, farming, and forestry sector. Our focus is really on long-term sustainability of the Hawaii agricultural sector that specifically considers things like anaerobic digestion to reduce waste and production of soil amendments, resulting in both ecological and economic benefits for our producers and our communities. We're hoping by integrating regenerative practices, technical assistance, and infrastructure, the project will be supporting the emerging and expanding landscape of resilient and sustainable agricultural futures here in Hawaii. As you can see here, our project is an entire village of institutions and organizations that are leading this work, from universities to nonprofit producer-serving organizations that have come together in formulating and implementing the project scope of work. Real quick, a little bit of overview as well for the project. We're currently executing the first phase of the project that launched in May of 2023. It includes 6,850 acres of implementation projects, 52 producers, and as I mentioned, covering all 4 counties. We're also preparing simultaneously to launch phase 2. That portion of the project is aimed to launch in early summer of 2025, which we're explicitly focusing on including producers and practitioners that identify as historically underserved by USDA, as well as our own place-based definition, which includes small farmers, first-time farmers, Native Hawaiian, immigrant and refugee farmers, women farmers, just to name a few. Our project metrics really includes improvements in soil carbon and greenhouse gas, soil health and socioeconomic factors, really the emergent aspects that we internally developed and not necessarily externally prescribed by the USDA's baseline for the project. So we've definitely brought in aspirational place-based components of our scopes of work that go beyond USDA's baseline for this climate smart initiative. Our outputs or objectives include implementation of projects that improve climate readiness across agriculture. As mentioned, the 3 sectors we're focused on, as well as restoration lands. We're looking at developing markets really committed to regenerative practices and production in Hawaii for Hawaii. So our intent is a focus on production that circulates mostly within our local communities and economies versus export production as a primary output. And then our outcomes, we have 5 listed here. What our impacts we're hoping to support: improve systems resilience and equity for food and forest products, transform food systems for greater social equity, economic development, and ecological sustainability, inclusion of working lands in decarbonization strategy, increase in local food production to support household food security, and normalizing of indigenous and place-based food systems as a legitimate climate smart practice. And real quick, this is our ecosystem of governance structure. So as we mentioned, this is a 5-year pilot project. This hasn't been done before, so we literally had to launch this like a startup enterprise. And we decided in grounding into our ethos, which is heavily guided by equity principles, was using a sociocracy structure as a form of project governance. For those that may be interested in not just the what, but the how, in how projects are done, decisions are made, we decided to use this sociocracy framework. And this is just a glimpse, I won't go into detail, but a glimpse of what our internal project looks like and how we organize ourselves within this framework. If you are interested, look up Sociocracy for All, really interesting governance structure for those that are seeking alternatives to top-down hierarchical decision-making. And it really, the principles on governance here is equitable, inclusive, decentralized power where information, feedback, and input can flow between our scopes of work, looking at transparency and effectiveness. Real quickly here, what is climate smart agriculture? In a nutshell, USDA defines climate smart agriculture as sustainably increasing agriculture commodity productivity and income, strengthening resilience to climate change and variabilities, and reduces agriculture's contributions to climate change through the remediation of soil by implementing specific agricultural practices. Going beyond the baseline, as I mentioned, we've expanded those standards to really include, if you look on the right side, a multi-metrics framework that we are continually working on, which you could say is more of a holistic approach, looking at circular economy, community well-being, indigenous innovation and genealogy, functional ecology and nutrition, soil health, and warming mitigation. Lots of layers and complexity that we're moving through, but very specific and distinct. As I mentioned, just another kind of ground setting for the project, equity within the agricultural and environmental sector starts by acknowledging the root causes of inequity. And what does that mean from a place-based perspective? So really orienting the project from that ethos or lens was really important for us. And we have been gifted, working with the Office of Indigenous Knowledge and Innovation, the PEVA framework. And this PEVA framework has 3 principles in which the project orients to: equity, a willingness to understand the nature of the fracture or fractures within the systems we're working in; reciprocity, a willingness to build interventions that address the reasons for the fractures and are built to hold each side equally strong; and transparency, so a willingness to be clear and honest in intent and to operate in a transparent way. Give you a little bit of our ethos around that. Really, a social and ecological justice perspective is a principle that we're holding throughout the project. And lastly, before I hand it over to Angel with Cattlemen's Council, our Hawaii Cattlemen's Council, wanted to bring forth some of the systemic challenges that our project has experienced as a whole. To further ground in the context and positionality of our project and the systems change that we're seeking ambitiously through the project, really orienting to the larger landscape of US federal agriculture. I'm sure a majority of us have used or heard of the term historically underserved communities or producers. These 3 items have really been brought forth in general, and my colleagues will go into deeper detail in their specific experience thus far. The 3 items, NRCS, PIA, CPS, a lot of acronyms, are really based on continental agriculture practices and understanding, which is incompatible with Hawaii's agriculture practices and producer realities. A lack of recognition of indigenous agricultural practices, and a number of barriers, if you're familiar with working with federal and government funds, but specifically producers seeking NRCS and USDA financial or technical support, understanding those barriers within our project context and how we can address them in support of systems change, not just for this project, but in the larger agricultural sector, USDA and other partners as a whole. So I will pause there. There's a large overview of the project. I hope that was helpful in orienting our colleagues to sharing a bit of their very specific experience and expertise within the project. I'll pass it over to Angel to kick off Hawaii Cattlemen's Council.
Awesome. Mahalo, Lala. Aloha kako. It is my pleasure to introduce to you all the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council, an organization that represents the voice of Hawaii's cattle industry. The council's mission is to advocate for policies and programs that benefit Hawaii's paniolo. Ranching is Hawaii's largest agricultural practice, covering almost 20% of the state's land area, so there's great opportunity to have positive impact. Next slide, please. HCC is a statewide organization working to promote responsible stewardship of our natural resources while producing a high-quality protein, or beef. Our staff is shown here on the left. HCC also has a strong policy arm of our efforts, and earlier this year, some of our team was able to travel to Washington, D.C. as a part of a larger group of Hawaii advocates to meet with USDA officials, and this is shown here in the photo on the right. In these meetings, we shared our experiences with this new Climate Smart program and highlighted both successes and barriers to our federal counterparts that our project is facing. As a direct result of this trip, Secretary Vilsack of USDA requested our top 5 to 7 priorities for Hawaii agriculture, which will actually help to guide priorities for USDA funding. Next slide, please. Through the Hawaii Climate Smart Partnership, ranchers have been able to work collaboratively with farmers and foresters toward a common goal of improving practices. This collaboration is new and proving to be beneficial for us in this partnership. And under this program, Hawaii Cattlemen's Council has been able to help find sustainable ranching practices alongside other producer engagement organizations. And this has been really key for Hawaii producers because federal grants are not easily accessible for producers. As a partnership, we're able to help navigate environmental compliance, FSA eligibility, and other verification processes so that incentive payments can be made. Currently, for phase 1, we have 6 producers across 4 different islands. 4 of our producers have already attained both state and federal approvals across 3 different islands. And these producers are collectively managing approximately 1,200 acres within this Climate Smart project. Shown on this slide are some practices that have been approved in our sector specifically so far that our producers are engaging with. Next slide, please. So here are some photos sampling a range of different landscapes of our producers. This project has definitely given us many opportunities for successful and effective collaboration. And this has been especially true in taking baseline soil samples and vegetation samples for our producers in phase 1. Next slide, please. The Climate Smart Partnership is a pilot project, as Lala mentioned, and with any new initiative, there's been challenges and opportunities for Hawaii Cattlemen's Council. There have been state and federal project-wide implementation barriers. And since we're serving a diverse range of producers, HCC specifically, we work with producers that have project areas in this first phase ranging from 20 to upwards of over 1,000 acres. So this range and scale has really made us have to think critically about how we're implementing and verifying practices, not only across varying terrains, soil types, production systems, and islands, but also at different scales. We have also faced challenges specific to ranching practices and their implementation with their CPS code requirements. So more resources and technical assistance have had to be allocated to understanding more of these types of plans and requirements for producers implementing these practices. A major benefit of this pilot project, though, has been the collaborative partnerships and really leveraging pre-existing networks within our producer-facing organizations, whom you'll hear from today. Our collaboration also with NERDS and other key producer engagement organizations has really been invaluable to helping us navigate these complexities as well as make meaningful progress. Next slide, please. I'll just close here with a visual from one of our producers showcasing 612, or tree shrub establishment. And this is establishment of endemic Hawaiian hardwood koa trees in a well-managed grazing pasture. In this example, koa trees are planted through this tree shrub establishment practice, and the goal here is to enhance pasture diversity, as well as provide additional shade for livestock and improve both animal welfare as well as land productivity. Mahalo for your time.
Mahalo nui, Angel. We will pass it on to Forest Solutions. Irene, take it away.
Thanks, Lala. Aloha. It's nice to be with you guys all today and talking about this pretty incredible partnership that we've been able to put together. So I'm Irene Sprecher with Forest Solutions. We're a small business forestry and land management company based largely on Hawaii Island. And through the work that we do, we get to engage with public, private, nonprofit, land trust organizations that all are looking at different ways that they can improve the management of their lands. And so when the opportunity came available through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, we said, hey, partners within our network, I know we've been talking around opportunities to move from what would be considered small tree planting or small forest restoration projects. How this is an opportunity for us to be able to level up to something at a more of a landscape scale, as well as identify what those barriers are to be able to do that project work. So we had a bunch of interest from our partners. There was originally 15 different partners interested in doing large-scale tree planting, mostly focused on koa for reforestation and afforestation across 6,000 acres of Hawaii Island, as well as Maui, Kauai, and Oʻahu. If money was no object, we would be doing all of this area, but that's not the case. So as part of this grant project, we were able to get funding support to really dive in around 2,000 acres, primarily focused on Hawaii Island, to say, okay, let's take these project areas and look at the complexity that we have here and how we might be able to do koa reforestation at a large scale. So we've got 5 project partners doing this 2,000 acres. All of these project areas are what are considered the agricultural district lands. They range from open grasslands to degraded native forest grassland land cover types. And all are focused on creating the forest structure, reestablishing that forest ecosystem to be able to provide for different types of opportunities, whether that's for ecosystem restoration and wildlife benefits, in combination with other types of commodities or different opportunities for our landowners to be able to not only sustain their forest, be able to grow it over time. So projects include different types of forestry activities or forest products, as well as, creating the structure for more complex agroforestry systems, incorporation of forest farming for food or for sustaining cultural practice. Thanks, Lala. If you could move forward. All right. Okay, so 2,000 acres out of 6,000. So how do we stage our projects? How did we select our partners that we're going to be moving forward under this first phase 1 of our Climate Smart? All 5 of our producer projects have different levels of complexity. So we've got folks that are operational scale or maybe more sophisticated, have dedicated employees, have access to forestry crews for tree planting, all the way down to first-time land managers, our Native Hawaiian organizations. So we can really understand what are the barriers that people experience at these different levels of, maybe not sophistication, but different levels of land management. They also have, so those are all going to identify different barriers that they have. Some work that Forest Solution did in partnership with the Division of Forestry and Wildlife, as well as the University of Hawaii, right before the Climate Smart Commodities project came together, was putting together a COA financial model. And the COA financial model was started as a way to say, okay, maybe you need some initial grant funding to get started on landscape scale, but how do we bring in things like the carbon market or other forest products to be able to build that financial runway to keep our forests in forests? One of the things that was identified through that was that project scale was a big deal. So our 2,000 acres are broken up from 50 acres all the way to 1,000 acres, and looking at doing installation over 1 to 2, maybe 3 years. So this will be pretty significant for all of our producers as we look at how do you make this happen. We're also going to be providing them access to technical resources and expertise to help them understand what's needed to make this happen and track things like what's the cost and how does that affect at different scales. And before I hand it off, one last thing that I think is really unique and interesting about this program, and I think Lala led to this, is that this project is actually producer-led. So instead of coming out of a political policy or a government organization, this actually started from our producers as a way that says, hey, we know what climate smart agricultural looks like, and let us help lead the way on what needs to happen and what kind of support and incentives are needed to actually make this happen. Thanks, Lala.
Mahalo. Mahalo nui. All right, I'm going to call in Miguel and Kaliko. Please take it away.
All right. Mahalo, Irene, Angel, Lala, Ioane. It's just an honor to be part of this group. And so I just wanted to tell a little bit about who we are and where we come from. My name is Miguel. I'm with the Oʻahu Resource Conservation and Development Council. We're based in Kunia in central Oʻahu. And we're focused primarily on agricultural communities around Oʻahu, but we also have some experience working on neighbor islands. And so ORCD, we've been around since 1997 as an independent nonprofit that supports sustainable agriculture, local food production, and watershed restoration. Our past work includes partnering with farmers and ranchers to develop conservation plans, implement conservation practices to reduce non-point source pollution, and restore riparian areas. We've also helped facilitate a farmer-to-farmer soil health network, bringing together innovative farmers for co-learning. And we expand our reach through partnerships with other organizations, such as the NRCS Pacific Island Area Office, as well as the Oʻahu Soil and Water Conservation Districts, and then now with the Hawaii Climate Smart partnership. And so we actually, it's kind of an exciting time to be with ORCD. I was hired specifically for this Climate Smart project, and I've been with them for the past 15 months now. Yeah, so we're in the process of growing. We actually have an updated mission statement. We've recently merged with Oʻahu Agriculture and Conservation Association, so we're all under the same roof. Yeah, some of our team members are in this photo. Some of them are not all in here, and it's actually we're going to be hiring more people, so that our team is growing, and we're also redesigning our programs and services. So stay tuned for that. Next slide, please. So in terms of our priorities within the Climate Smart Commodities partnership, we want to increase support for innovative place-based climate smart farming practices for Hawaii, including indigenous agriculture. And so this is related to the missed connections between the existing Farm Bill conservation programs and Hawaii agriculture. And then secondly, we want to build an efficient and equitable incentives program informed by Hawaii's unique needs and values. And so this relates to building a program with infrastructure that can persist beyond the 5-year timeframe of this grant with support from the state. And I do want to mention that there are other similar efforts, one of them being like the Carbon Smart Land Management Program, which is through the state. But I guess what I'm just trying to get at is that, this is not just a one-off 5-year grant, but we're hoping to create sustainability in the long term, because this does very much align with our mission and vision. And so now I'm gonna pass it on to Kaliko. You can change to the next slide.
Thanks, Miguel. Aloha mai kākou. My name is Kaliko. And yeah, so what we're looking at here is our current practices, kind of similar to what you saw with the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council. I would say our most common practice that we're supporting is soil carbon amendment. So that's like adding compost or manure to your soil to increase the vitality of it. We're currently supporting 148 acres all on Oʻahu. And that translates to $1.1 million spread over 8 contracts. Currently, we have a few more on the way, hopefully soon. And we're supporting a variety of producers and agricultural systems, from orchards to agroforestry, to diversified vegetables and herbs and specialty crops. Next slide, please. So some of the challenges and barriers that we face, hopefully if there's time at the end, we can come back to these things. So I'll just give a brief overview. Aligning farm operations with bureaucratic processes can be difficult. For certain practices, the area of implementation enrolled in the program is required to remain fallow until the approval process is complete. So that can be like a big burden on farmers. The dynamic nature of farm operations, last minute adjustments, difficulty finding plant materials and shipping delays in Hawaii can be a big problem. Plantation agricultural systems, lead to depleted soils. That's another barrier. And then the last couple are kind of too big to address in this conversation, but they are worth acknowledging. Lack of place-based perspective. So processes that were designed for the continent being transposed onto Hawaii can cause issues. And then inequities in land access is huge here. So that's it for now. Mahalo.
Mahalo. We'll definitely come back to some of these items in our conversation. I'm going to pass it over to Kenji. HFUU, take it away.
Thank you, Lala, and thank you, Ioane, for hosting this and giving me the opportunity to be here today and represent Hawaii Farmers Union United. Aloha kākou. My name is Kenji, and I am the project coordinator for Hawaii Farmers Union United. I'm just going to introduce my team that I work with. So we have Annie Bruck, who is our producer engagement team lead and sort of oversees the work that we do for the Climate Smart Commodities Partnership through HFUU. And then we have our Climate Smart specialist, Javier Molinetto, who is our climate smart specialist on Maui, and sort of covers that area for us. Just want to introduce Hawaii Farmers Union United as a nonprofit organization that advocates for farmers across Hawaii, not just farmers, but also ranchers and fisheries. And Hawaii Farmers Union is affiliated with the National Farmers Union. So we have a bigger, broader parent organization nationally. Across the state, we have 16 regional chapters, but for this project, we're focusing mainly on servicing the islands or the counties of Kauai and Maui. And some of the things that Hawaii Farmers Union supports is local agriculture, regenerative agriculture, educational opportunities, so farmer to farmer training programs and apprenticeships, and other things that our members believe in, such as organic farming practices and whatnot. I also want to mention that aside from just our producer engagement team that's dedicated towards the Hawaii Climate Smart project, we also have support from HFEU across our leadership. So our president, Kaipo Kikona, has stepped in and supported us in various meetings and organization activities, and other leaders like Reba Lopez have joined us for activities like collecting samples in the field. So it's excited to be a part of this union or organization. And Hawaii Farmers Union is a membership organization. So we're open for members who want to be a part of like a broader farm-based community across the islands. So you can go to our website and find more information on becoming a member. And if you are a member in the islands of Kauai or Maui, then we will be in contact with you when Hawaii Climate Smart Phase 2 starts up. Next slide, please. Okay, so I think our organization and the projects that producers that we serve and the projects that we have are pretty unique because Hawaii Farmers Union United represents small, really diversified farmers. Across this project, we have 7 producers, which totals 71 acres. But across our 7 projects on 71 acres, we actually have very exciting and complex projects that cover or include 13 different conservation practices. So we have small acreage, small farmers, but a lot of practices. We sort of work on these very unique complex projects, and we call them suites of practices, where we take a lot of practices that farmers are interested in doing or either already doing, and we sort of overlap them and see how we can mesh them into fit these complex projects. So on the left, I just have a list of all the practices that we have included in our projects, and we can talk about that more. But I'm just going to run through some examples of the different projects that we have across the island. So next slide, please. So we have annual veg crops, and in these type of systems, we have practices like cover cropping, reduced till, soil carbon amendment, and one good thing about this is we're actually expanding farmer capacity, where we have farmers doing innovative projects like creating biochar and building capacity to create biochar with on-farm inputs. So their capacity could live on throughout the project. Next slide, please. We also have farmers that are doing specialty crops like dryland taro, and these type of farmers face resource concerns like wind, soil erosion, plant damage from wind, and invasive species encroachment. So these type of projects are exciting because we can help produce specialty crops that are special and unique to our islands and help them sort of address some of their resource concerns. Next slide, please. We have a lot of orchard farmers that are doing a lot of fruit crops, and a lot of our systems contain multiple systems. So they have orchards with annual veg crops mixed in. So one of our farmers on one of our projects in this slide actually has a suite of 7 different climate smart practices. Next slide, please. So we have agroforestry projects that are some of our more innovative projects where we include livestock and forest farming. And next slide, please. And then we also include pasture area where we have livestock grazing, although not big and it's very small scale. We do include that in our profiles. We're very diverse. So last slide, please. Oh, actually, and not to mention, we also do have seed production. So farmers that are also producing seed to sell, to cultivate sort of this program. Last slide, please. And listed, I just have some of our challenges that we've sort of faced in phase 1, and we can revisit this in our Q&A. And I think that's it. I think I have some opportunities that are also listed. And this is some, just to spur conversation in our Q&A, I just put a bunch of opportunities that are presented themselves through this project. So yeah, thank you. And yeah, I'll pass it on to my next colleague.
Mahalo, Kenji. Mahalo nui. And last but not least, we got Kyle from ʻUlu Co-op. Take us out, and then we'll have a little bit of time for discussion. Mahalo.
All right. Aloha, everyone. Once again, thanks to the organizers and to my peers on the panel for helping share about this awesome project. My name is Kyle Jackson. I am the membership lead for the Hawaiʻi ʻUlu Cooperative. The Hawaiʻi ʻUlu Co-op is made up of 180 farmers who each hold a stake as member owners in our business. The cooperative provides our farmer members with a guaranteed market and stable price for their ulu. We offer education and technical support and the opportunity to participate in the democratic governance of a community-based agriculture organization. Some benefits that the co-op members enjoy is they get to help develop economies of scale through collective action. We kind of work together with other organizations, some of the ones that you see on the panel with us today, to attain bargaining power and leverage our collective social, economic, and political resources as farmers. Our ultimate goal is to empower farmers as change makers in promoting sustainable agriculture within our community. Our focus is on breadfruit as our cornerstone crop, but we also take in, process, and distribute 3 other crops that are our co-crops, which is kalo, uala, and palaʻai. And just talk a little bit about our involvement with the project. We are working with the Kohala Center, so just want to give them a shout out as well. They're our partner here on Hawaii Island. There are 11 of the 19 producers on this island are co-op members. So we've got a pretty big stake in making sure that, our farmers are aware of this project and that we're enabling the project itself with providing as many resources to those farmers as we can. The vast majority of the folks that we represent are orchard and agroforestry farmers, not necessarily all focused on breadfruit, but the majority that, are in the co-op, of course, do. The top practices that we have in our cohort of producers is tree and shrub establishment, mulching, some fencing, and forest farming. So those are kind of the main practices that we see through our cohort of producers. The biggest support resources that these folks need once we get them involved in the project is, finding sources for plants and seeds that they plan to plant, finding equipment or service contractors for things like mulching, fencing, other on-farm activities that smaller farms can't provide themselves, and technical planning support. So just being a part of the larger structure of TA that the project offers. And next slide, please. The biggest thing that we have learned in helping with this project, and is something that we generally just encourage farmers to do, is planning. Having a really good plan in place and utilizing all the different folks that are involved in this project to get that done. We've learned a few lessons in phase 1. I'll just touch on those really quick, and then we can circle back to questions and Q&A. Some of the lessons that we learned in phase 1 going into phase 2 is, producer communication is really key. This project is really aimed at supporting farmers and producing commodities through enabling them to do the best that they can do. So that, getting their input and hearing from them is something that we're incorporating into preparing for phase 2. Diversity of farm size and practice choice is important to an extent. We want to have diversity and inclusion throughout the project, but it's also really important to try and identify producers who will be most impacted by the funding and support. And then having a more streamlined approval process as we build out this grant in the future is something that we're focused on. And I'll pass it back to Lala.
Mahalo nui, co-conspirators. I know that was a lot. We brought in a ton of different voices, and we wanted to do so to give a little taste of, again, the ecosystem that this project encompasses. To learn more, check out our website, Mahalo Ioane, for all those drops of organizations, as well as the Climate Smart Partnership website. And staying tuned, as we mentioned, phase 2 is going to roll out their our RFA in early summer of 2025. So with that being said, mahalo. We're going to move into our kind of discussion segment of our session here. And we probably will have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. Ioane, I don't know if we have a ton of audience questions coming in. You let me know. Can maybe squeeze 1 or 2 of our facilitated prompt questions.
Yeah, we have one question in the Q&A feature right now for the whole team, just asking how these federal agencies, how federal agencies, NRCS can better support Native Hawaiian producers, and also how those agencies have grown through your network with them.
Yeah, I'd love to kick it off with the audience question and response. Maybe take a minute each. I know that's kind of short, but yeah. Who would like to respond first? Can I call in? Yeah, go ahead, Miguel, and Kaliko, if I can.
Yeah, I feel like this is a maybe I don't have a short answer, but I'll try to keep it brief. I feel like part of the challenge is that a lot of these conservation standards were developed for a continental context, and agriculture in Hawaii, especially indigenous agriculture, has things that might not even be contemplated in anywhere on the continent. And so I would say a good example is loʻikago, and how that tends to clash with wetland conservation efforts. I mean, the continental US has a long history of wetlands being reclaimed for development or other purposes, and yes, I mean there are important natural habitats, but I think that the challenge is to get the Western scientific definition of a wetland, which is usually from that perspective it's man separate from nature. But in like a loʻikago context, it is a functional wetland. I mean, you can have native birds there. It can serve as habitat, but it can also provide food for the community. And so I think that just trying to get better recognition of that as a standard practice in Hawaii is an important challenge.
And yeah, if I could just dovetail onto that, I think that's a really good point. And I also think a lot of these institutions and organizations like to claim that they're supporting indigenous practices. But then in terms of how that actually plays out, it's a little more murky. And I think if we actually want to do that, we should be centering indigenous practitioners and having them be directly involved or in charge of developing policies for Hawaii, because they're the ones who know what it actually takes to make that work.
Mahalo to that. Anyone else want to respond to that audience question?
I'll just add a little bit. Thanks, Miguel and Kaliko. That was very, very well put. I'll just add that I think that there's some trust rebuilding that needs to be done. And a lot of that is ideally through you know, the relationships that have already been built. So, I mean, part of the process for us is all coming together with those relationships that we've built within communities, Native Hawaiian communities and otherwise, and coming together to work with NRCS to really say, hey, we're coming with our network to the federal government, and we're based on trust and support of each other, and then trying to figure out how we can communicate what's really needed within that federal system and try and rebuild some of those relationships that maybe haven't been so supported or haven't really been listened to in how policies have been put together or how projects have been put together. And to be honest, we're still struggling through that right now in those conversations with USDA and NRCS. And it just reinforces how important, you know, being able to have that dialogue with each other at several levels within the federal agencies, you know, at a national level, at a state level, at the community level is. And so I don't think that we've quite figured out how we can remend those relationships, but hopefully some of the people we've put together, our groups are here, can help with that a little bit.
Yeah, mahalo for that. I think what's conjuring for me is I also dropped into the chat to share is USDA's Equity Action Plan, which includes prioritizing Indigenous place-based agricultural practices. And so there's a number of these very specific equity action items that USDA is putting forward that our project is actually saying like, here, this is how you could implement it through this project. So taking advantage of the larger systemic initiative through that federal agency is part of our project too. And all three of you touched on the importance of that. Yeah, go ahead, Angel.
Yeah, I'll just add in from the ranching sector, we definitely have people that are affiliated with HCC that have worked with NRCS, both or in this, not in this project, but in other forms and fashions. So we've done a little bit of work to try to understand their perceptions just at a statewide level. And I just want to elevate the trust rebuild I think that needs to happen. That there has been some commentary on that within the ranching sector specifically, as well as just different offices with NRCS across the state, really helping different producers. For example, maybe not all offices are as rancher or ranching practice oriented. So that has been mentioned before. And yeah, I think that for this project, there's definitely kind of a disconnect when thinking about how these practices are going to be implemented. And as others have pointed out that, you know, a lot of these practices are based in a continental understanding of resource management. And so to really open up the lens to kind of some of these other practices that are food producing and that are resilience building for our community, those avenues are, you know, still being understood. So just wanted to add that in. Thanks.
Mahalo. Mahalo. We have about 5 minutes left before the top of the hour. Did anybody else want to respond to that initial audience question? Or I could open up for kind of pointing to that, but more of like, what are you solving for right now? What's your top priority within this project? Maybe we can shift to that final question and do a round real quickly. So what is one of the biggest things your org is trying to solve for in being part of this project specifically? I know you're solving for a lot, but what's coming or what's a priority that this project is specifically pushing? Maybe if I could bring it back to you, Angel, if that's okay. And then Angel to Irene, maybe about a minute each.
Yeah, I think this project specifically is to one of the biggest things that we're trying to solve for in the ranching sector is is an understanding just of these practices. And I think when we talk about climate change and building resilience, often ranchers sometimes can be left out of those conversations. So really having a seat at the table and, advocating for the ranchers to be included is important, but also this project is helping us to understand major data gaps that we have for Hawaii specifically, like in the ranching sector and in the implementation of climate smart practices and what that does for the ranching sector, both for profit as well as, for ecosystem services. And when we think about carbon storage and, other types of services that ranchers might be interested in. So coming from HCC, I think to really contribute to a deeper understanding has been an important aspect to being involved, and also to just being that mechanism for ranchers to be able to be included and to be able to get incentive payments. Yeah, thanks.
Mahalo. Irene, and then over to Kyle.
Yeah, so I've got three quick things. So right now, I think what we are feeling buried in and hoping to get through is like, how do we get our poor producers, right, who are out there working the land through some of these like compliance and paperwork barriers. So really serving as an advocate for all of our producers as they try to work through this very bureaucratic process. It's not easy. I mean, that's one of the major barriers for people being able to participate in government programs. Our project is hoping to take a look at what some of those technical and financial barriers are for folks to restore native forests, continue to manage their native forests, and all the benefits that associated with that. And what I'm most excited about is really this opportunity to work with cattle folks, with agricultural folks across our agricultural community to be like, okay, how do we do circular economy? How can we all work together across sectors, which I don't think happens that often, that we actually get to talk across different groups working on things and like, okay, how do we scale up, or how do we collaborate on infrastructure needs? So I'm really excited about that.
Mahalo, Irene. Kyle, and then we'll go to Miguel and Kaliko.
Yeah, I'm actually just going to build right off of what Irene was speaking on. Reminds me of something an uncle told me one time about agriculture, just in general. A saying of he va'a he moku, he va'a, which is, the canoe is an island and an island is a canoe. And I find that really relevant with this project. It's kind of like each of our sectors are on our own little aina within the aina. And so it's nice to kind of poke our heads above the clouds and be like, oh, you're just right over here on the same land as me, working on similar goals, and we can help each other out. So it's been really educational for me, really inspiring. And I think that that's going to be one of the lasting effects of this program, is that we're all, a little bit closer as a family. So excited about that.
Mahalo, Kyle. Kaliko and Miguel, please.
Oh man, you guys took all the great ideas and now, but no, there's still more. I feel like maybe for me, one challenge is, when we're talking about like underserved producers, I feel like, this is maybe a common thing that you've heard before, that sometimes the ones that or it's easier for those to get help, the ones who don't need it, you know what I mean? And so like really just the efforts that we need to make sure that there is equitable access, it requires a lot of work. And I do feel like, as Irene said, all the bureaucratic hurdles, that's a burden. There's time poverty issues. And so what I like to say to the producers is that, we're wrestling with the bureaucracy, so you don't have to. I mean, even they still do have to, but yeah, we take on the majority of that so they can focus on just working the land.
Yeah, I agree. I concur with what everybody said. I think our biggest conservation issue in Hawaii is land access, for local people. So my personal and professional goal is to, support especially young local people as much as we can to farm, because there's this conception that young people don't want to farm. I reject that. We don't get to farm because we don't have land access. So that is what's fueling my fire. And I know we're past time, so I'll leave it there. Mahalo.
Mahalo, mahalo. And Kenji, take us out.
Yeah, thank you, Lala. Yeah, so for representing HFUU, we have a lot of membership that consists of small and more of the underserved community of farmers, and especially being on islands of Kauai and Maui, sometimes it could be a little bit hard to reach some of these farmers. So that's one of our missions in phase 2 of the project, is just expand our outreach to reach some of these farmers who don't get heard or served, and then not just get to reach them, but I think one of the ethos of this project and a huge opportunity for us is to look at some of their systems that they're doing that don't necessarily align, like some of my colleagues say, don't necessarily align with the type of agriculture we're doing here, and sort of use this project as a tool to sort of help align those so that these communities could participate in some of these programs that have huge benefits financially for farmers. Farming is hard, and all the support that farmers could get is needed. And then, like some of my other colleagues said too, just the network, the depth and quality of network that we're building across this project. I feel like I have friends and colleagues now that are across the islands and across sectors of agriculture, and yeah, it's such a deep network, so it just feels good to be a part of it. And yeah, I appreciate every one of you, and yeah, it's just been a pleasure this whole time working with every last one of you.
Mahalo, Kenji. Thank you for that heart-filled final closing. Mahalo, Ioane, e kalamai, audience. We went a little bit over, but I'll pass the mic back to you. Mahalo again for the opportunity, Ioane.
Yeah, mahalo everybody. Thank you so much for co-facilitating or really facilitating everything today, Lala. This is amazing partnership. So much information to digest. I think the great thing about the brown bag is it's quick. We can consume this at lunch, but this one, I'm super full. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it, and that's the beauty of recording this. So as promised, we do have a question in the Q&A feature we couldn't get to, but we will get that question to all of our panelists, and we will return that with an answer for you, Berkeley, as well as the rest of our audience when we get the recording of this to everybody. And just wanted to mahalo everybody again for taking the time to do this. I love this work, and this has just been an amazing presentation, amazing event. Thank you all again.
Mahalo.
Aloha.
Ahoy.
Mahalo.
Ioane.
Ahui ho.